Welcome to the Life's Best Medicine podcast, where we are finding hope and healing one episode at a time. No appointment needed, no rubber gloves, and no coping. Just a healthy dose of life lessons to help equip you for this wild journey we call life. Hey everyone, I'm going to keep it brief today, believe it or not. It's just me. You're going to be stuck with me rambling for a bit. This is recorded a little bit after Thanksgiving. And, I just want to let you know what I'm thankful for. First of all, I want to start with Simply Snacking. I got in trouble with a friend of mine. She's like, what is Simply Snacking? I hear you talking about, but what the heck is it? So apparently I haven't done a very good job of explaining. They're beef and chicken snacks that you can have. They're individually wrapped. And so you get throw it in your suitcase whenever I'm traveling. That's my go-to. It's grass-fed beef and range chicken, and they're all great flavors, lower in carbs compared to most beef jerkies out there. So that's what it is. So friends, thank you for questioning me on that. So try it, then you'll know. You don't have to take my word for it. It's great stuff. Everyone loves it. I have to hide it in my garage for my kids. So, and I'm thankful for Simply Snacking for sponsoring this podcast and for sticking with me through all the craziness and crazy guests we've had on and all the fun. So, that's one thing I'm thankful for. So I want to tell you about my Thanksgiving, everyone. It was an eventful one. So it started out, I said, look, it's Thanksgiving. I'm going to go out for a ride with one of my good friends, Carlos Merlot, who a lot of you know from the podcast here. He's doing a lot of great stuff with the Merlot Foundation. Anyways, we go to Coronado and ride our bikes on whenever we have time and days off. And so we spend a great morning, just beautiful ride. And I remember just listening to a little bit of music and thinking, man, this is a perfect way to start Thanksgiving. It's a beautiful place, Coronado. Anyone who's ever been there knows that. And so we just have a great morning. He says, hey, do you want to stay and have a cup of coffee after we got back from wearing each other out? And so we did, and just talked about life and things. And another buddy of mine, Kevin Miller, who has a Cent 315 podcast, which is great. He's a great guy. And he texted me, he goes, hey, Brian, are you okay? And I said, as far as I know, I'm a little tired, but I'm all right. Why? What's up? He said, there's a fire right next to your house. And he sent the name of the street, and it's like 2 streets from me. I said, you're kidding me, right? He said, no. So I called my wife. She said, yeah, we just got an evacuation order, all that kind of stuff. And so I said, okay, Carlos, I'm not finishing my coffee. I got to go. So, just jumped in my car, and I felt at peace. I didn't feel like, it wasn't too stressed about it. And, it turned out it was an 18-acre fire. What it really did was made me realize what matters. It was one of those moments. I was driving down my street, and there's a hill behind our house, and I could see a huge flames on the side of the hill where the water tower it still is. And there was helicopters flying over dropping water. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I stopped and took a quick video of that. And then I get home, smoke all over. And my wife's there just packing up stuff, and she had all of her financial stuff, tax information, that kind of thing, all boxed up already. She said, luckily I just did this a couple of weeks ago. It was just on my mind, so I did it. So that's already. And I said, what else really matters? And all of a sudden I can hear the helicopters, and, went up to my room, and on our back, we have a little porch in the back that we never use. And I just sat there and watched helicopters go back and forth, just picking up water. We have a riverbed behind our house, and they were picking up water, going and dropping it, picking up water, going and dropping it. And I was thinking, it's Thanksgiving. These guys are out there protecting me, right? I was very thankful for that, because there's like Big Brother there to protect you. And, I started thinking, it's like, I know 2 patients of mine who got fired because they already had COVID and didn't want to get vaccinated. On top of it, they had done their research and they made an informed decision. And I was thinking, do I really care with these guys here? Would I ask them that question? No, they're doing their job and what they're called to do, right? And so if they weren't there because they were grounded, then my house burns down, and so you start thinking about all these things. And I just remember having such a peace. People talk about faith and they say, prove your faith. And it's hard to prove, but I'll tell you, when you feel it and say, what really matters, really, we get some pictures of the kids, throw in the car, and the other awesome thing that happened was Kevin Miller texted me and said, hey, Brian, what do you need? I can get you 2 vans. I could do this. Let me get you a trailer. We'll just pack up all your stuff. I was like, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think we're good. These guys are doing a good job. And there was airplanes flying over, dropping water on the fire. And a friend of mine actually lives on that street, and his whole backyard was pink from all the fire repellent that they were dropping. But the other great thing was there were houses that were up against a canyon, and last week the county cleared 20 feet of brush last week, right before this happened. So they came in and cleared that out. Just think how different that could have been, because this fire burned right up to the fence line for these guys, and we were buffered by a few rows of houses. So, but once the houses catch, it can go very quickly. So, and also it was a Santa Ana winds, and so the wind was blowing very strongly that day too, and it was a perfect condition for a bad fire. But the wind shifted too, and it started blowing away from my house. And I was like, I'll take that, because driving there, all I could do is pray and say, okay, God, your will be done, but hopefully your will is in alignment with mine. And apparently it was. But it's just so important to say how much we need community, how much we need other people. Like, everyone did their job, and it could have been a disastrous outcome. But ultimately you look and you say, look, my wife's with me, my kids are with me, I'll grab my two crazy dogs, throw them in the car, and we get out of here, right? During that same time, my pastor, Dave Hoffman, calls and goes, hey, Brian, come up to our place. We have plenty of room. We'd love to have you. And another neighbor called, another friend called, and it was just such an outpouring. I posted something on Twitter, and so many people were so kind and private messaged me and said, hey, what do you need? How can I help? Let us know, keep us posted. And just to know you have community, I think it's so important. And that's one thing I think over the last couple of years, I think we've been so separated and so divided that we forget what really matters sometimes. So that's how my Thanksgiving started. And then 15, 20 minutes later, we get another message from the sheriff's department saying, hey, everything's good. You're clear. We've got in. A good friend of mine's a fireman, and he called and said, hey, I'm on the front lines. We've stopped the progression. Everything's looking good. So don't worry. So, having that kind of reassurance is important. And so that's how it started. And then I had the absolute honor. I got invited. That's how God works sometimes. Just me, this little doc, and this little practice over here. Probably because I'm a little vocal on Twitter and the podcast. I was saying, hey, here's what I believe, like it or not. Here's where I'm at as a doc, and here's what I've seen. I was invited to a meeting with some nurses and doctors, and Dr. Peter McCullough, a lot of you may know. If you don't, he's worth looking up and hearing what he's been saying. One of the most decorated doctors in the world. I mean, he's published everywhere. He was the chief editor of two huge journals, cardiologist, just a fantastic person. And I had the pleasure of sitting down with him. And I won't mention the other doctors and nurses who were there, because I'm hoping to have them on the podcast. But to hear their stories is overwhelming of what they've been through. Two of them were fired from local hospitals who they already had COVID, and they were fired for not being vaccinated or looking at the risks and benefits and all that. And Dr. McCullough has been a very vocal critic of the way we're handling this situation. But he is a person of science. His integrity is unmatched. And just sitting and talking, we talked for about 4 hours, all of us together. There was probably 12 of us together there. One of the doctors here opened his home, and it was beautiful. And hopefully I'll have him on the podcast soon. But you start realizing, I asked him, why are you doing this? You're one of the most decorated doctors. You could have just walked away. It was the same question I asked Professor Tim Noakes, Dr. Noakes, and Gary Fettke. Is like, why don't you just walk away? And all of them say the same thing. And this is a sign of greatness, is that they have to do the right thing. They said they can't just walk away when they see untruths, when they see misinformation. And so it came at great cost. This Dr. McCullough has had death threats against him. He's had to protect his family. He was ushered out of his office because he was giving, quote, misinformation. And he had all the data sitting there. He had all the studies. He had all the clinical experience. He got a team of doctors together and said, we can't let people just die. And he talks about the humanity and people being locked up in nursing homes and just not being able to communicate with their family and not be able to see people. And you realize, gosh, what really matters in life at some point? And for me, I like to fly under the radar as much as possible, but these stories need to be told. I mean, these stories are gut wrenching of some of these physicians, of what they've been through and what's happening, how some of them they don't have a job anymore, and they have med school loans, and you start seeing how how difficult it is to maintain your integrity and to do the right thing. And there's huge sacrifice. So think about those things when you're watching, when you're hearing stuff from people say, what is their best interest in me? You say, what's your best interest, Brian, in what you're telling me? And I think part of it is we went to med school to help people and to save lives. And I think we've lost sight of that. I've seen doctors who just completely turn a blind eye to the data, to the facts. And it's very difficult because one side thinks the other side's crazy always, completely. But the point is we need to really be able to sit down and discuss these things in a reasonable manner and say, why do you think this is working or not working? And what's your data? Present what you're seeing. And I think it's very critical. One of the docs there who I respect a great deal, who's helped me a lot in my practice, I could reach out and say, hey, what do I do if this person has this condition? What do you think? He was there and we had a great discussion about what he was seeing. I also met a really great doc who's a local doc who randomly happened to be there. One of the mayors of one of the local cities was there, who I respect a great deal. So anyways, it was very neat to get together. And how does God open that door? I mean, I'm not one of the elite docs, I'm not one of the academia type people, but Dr. McCullough is an academic. He's one of the establishment people. And now he says, look, I see a problem. And he was willing to put his reputation on the line, his years and years of dedication to medicine. But you could see, when you talk to someone like that and you realize he does it for the patient, and the other thing that's really critical is talking to all these doctors who've been really on the front lines of treating COVID, is that it's the obesity and diabetes, really is a huge issue. And all of them were saying the same thing that I was saying, is the worst outcomes from people who are metabolically sick. And so this is why we take this stance and why we say, look, let's work on, we've had 2 years to get healthier, and we just say, well, it's too late. It's too late. No, it's not too late. So I think part of it is why I'm doing this podcast, is to talk about lifestyle and exercise and activity and the importance of fellowship, the importance of community. And so that's why this Thanksgiving weekend was so valuable to me, is to sit back and say, gosh, this guy could have just walked off into the sunset. Professor Noakes, Gary Fettke, all these doctors could have just said, you know what, it's too much pressure, I'm done. But these are bulldogs. They're very kind. I mean, you sit and you look into their eyes and you just see humanity and that they care. And so it's hard to deny those things, because, I always assess agendas and why you're doing it. And ultimately, it sounds like it's a battle of good versus evil. There's evil people out there, and they're gonna trick you, and they're gonna make you think that they're your savior, and they're not. And so I think that it's really important to have discernment and to weigh things and not just to react, because I think fear is such a strong tool, and it's been used a lot. And so I think it's really important for us to just sit back, and I think saying, okay, what really matters? Relationships, friends, people. Those people who called me, when they thought my house was burning down, that means something. My daughter's boyfriend came over and said, hey, do you have any elderly neighbors that I can go help, and I'll help them pack up their stuff? I was like, wow, that's the kind of people you want around you, that care. And so the neighbors were all helping each other. The neighbors on that street where the fire was up to their back porches, they were out there with their own garden hoses trying to put it out, till the firemen came with their big hose, dragged it through the house and put this thing out. So I think really the message I want to give is how important, how we all need each other. We all have a skill set. Whatever you're doing, use your skill set to benefit others, to help others, and to look out for your neighbors, to look out for other people. And I think that's a big part of this podcast. So Life's Best Medicine is saying, look, it's not all about just what you're eating. It's not just about exercise. It's not just about getting enough sleep. It's about how you live your life. And I think being around people, like Dr. McCullough, you see how they live their life. This is what a doctor should be. You question the system and you stand up and you say, look, I'm going to take the arrows and I'll move forward, because I know I'm helping people. I know I'm saving lives. So, and they have the numbers and they have the data. And I think it's really a hard thing when you're being censored and you're being blackballed, you're being ridiculed, to keep going, because the pressure is immense. But when you see the resolve in people, I think that's the thing, is the resolve in these firemen who are putting out the fire. They were away from their families on Thanksgiving to protect my family. And so we have to really appreciate each other for these things, And so Simply Snacking for making this podcast available for you, for bringing these stories out, for the great guests we have coming up. I have some really great guests coming up. So it's exciting just to learn. And I grab something from each person. I take a little piece of them with me. But, this is my reflection on Thanksgiving. I think part of it is reflecting. I think sitting back and saying, we had the Keto Mojo people on, and their house burned down. I said, "What did you grab?" I got my sommelier notes. I got these things. Like, there's certain things that are really important. And I think this is something we need to really focus on, especially during the holidays, is saying what really matters. If there was a fire coming, what would I grab? What would I not grab? I grabbed pictures. I grabbed my hard drive with all the pictures of the kids growing up, pictures off the wall of my wedding, things like that really matter, that you can't replace. But who cares about the refrigerator and the microwave and all these other things? All those things can be replaced, right? And it's really about the memories. It's about the interactions. It's about friendship, and all those things came to light for me again. My brother checking in on my dad and mom, and my mom was actually with us, and so it was really something. So, anyways, and I'm really appreciative of everyone who puts this podcast together. Jack and Chris, appreciate you guys, and working a lot of hours to get all this stuff out to people, and I'm just thankful for the listeners. Thank you for spending your time with us, with me. And hopefully you're getting something of value. That's the point. Hopefully some of these things sink into the brain, and some of it may not make sense now, but at some point in your life, you'll realize, yeah, there's some good stuff there. And I've been really amazed, and my life has been changed by a lot of our guests. So thank you for your continued support, and just have a great holiday season with your family. And just remember what really matters, what really is life's best medicine for you. And keep plugging along. Be kind to yourself, be kind to others. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this episode. We greatly appreciate your support. We would greatly appreciate a positive thumbs up on all of the platforms like iTunes and Spotify, or wherever you're listening. And we just thank you for our Patreon supporters. We greatly appreciate your help in getting this message out. We think there's a lot of important information, and hopefully this helps you. Have a great day, and thank you for listening, and thank you for your support.